Hello everyone, back to tuning in to today's second video. Have a look at the ECMWF extended model for today's second video. This is your 30-day / 42-day European outlook, and I shall get on with that for you in a moment. Just say that the first video release today was our 6 AM UK weather forecast, and there's a 10 to 14 day coming up for later on today as well. Please like, share and subscribe on all of today's videos and content, and thank you so much everybody for doing that. Thank you so much to ECMWF.int for supplying the charts as well, by the way. Thank you so much, EC. Right, so we're going to start off with the week 1 mean sea level pressure anomaly, taking us through the week we're currently in, the 2nd to the 9th of October. And we've got an area of high pressure this week covering much of Western Europe. We've also got low pressure in the far north and northeast Europe, and some higher pressure building towards Greenland with low pressure under the south of it. Quite a complicated pattern, but this low to the northeast, let's get rid of that. This low to the northeast will be bringing some quite cool air into the far northeast of Europe. Otherwise, the ridge bow will be pulling up very warm air across many central and western parts of Europe. 500 millibar height anomaly that shows it all up very nicely, with again the above average heights sitting across the west and central part of Europe and down to southern Europe too, with the trough of below average heights to the north and northeast. That brings cooler air into the far north and northeast Europe. Otherwise, the ridge brings up again very warm air from southern regions, from Africa and whatnot. So here's our temperature anomaly for this week. It is a bit cooler than average, or even colder than average in the far north and northeast of Europe, particularly through central northern parts of Norway, Sweden, and into Finland and far northwest of Russia as well. And a little bit cooler to the south of the Black Sea around Turkey. They're the exceptions to the rule. Otherwise, a very warm or even hot week to come across most parts of Europe. Yet again, another heat spike or a heat dome building northwards. We see through central parts of Spain, for example, a temperature anomalies of around 6 to 10 degrees above normal. Otherwise, widespread temperature anomalies of 3 to 6 degrees above normal through France, Spain, Portugal, and into Germany, Poland, and much of Western Europe as well. Out into the UK and Ireland, again, somewhere between around 1 to 3 or 3 to 6 degrees above average. So a very, very warm week to come, particularly for the time of the year. And precipitation-wise, we look like this. So where we've got that trough of low pressure, it is wetter, particularly from Denmark through the Baltic Sea to Baltic Sea states of Latvia, Estonia and Lithuania. Northern parts of Scandinavia looking a little bit drier, both Norway looks rather wet, especially in the west. The northern part of Britain and into Northern Ireland also wetter than average through there, dry than average through Ireland and England, Wales. And then elsewhere, generally it's a dry than average scene under that big area of high pressure. So all the way from like France, Spain, Portugal in the west, over to the Black Sea in the east, and all points in between, generally drier than normal. Really dry around the Balkans, by the way, along the Adriatic shores of the Balkans. Again, looking very, very dry through there. So it is generally a dry anticyclonic scene in most areas this week. Now, week 2 sees a change. This is the 9th to the 16th of October, with below average heights or low pressure covering much of northern Europe. Higher pressure is sinking more into towards the south and southeast Europe and pulling out into the Atlantic as well. That sends in more of a west-northwesterly flow, particularly across northern parts of Europe. The 500 millibar height anomaly for next week looks like this. So you see the below average height just generally covering much of northern Europe, with the above average height starting to slip southeastwards, and that will revert the wind flow back into more of a westerly, probably, temperature anomalies next week, showing that the core of the warm is shifting a little bit further eastward. So it's still there through Spain, Portugal, and much of France, and into Germany, but also extending through Poland and down in towards Austria, Hungary, and also in towards the Ukraine and into the Balkans as well, to the Black Sea, very substantially above average temperature anomalies through those areas, Romania as well, 3 to 6 degrees above average. Still warmer than average to the north and west of that. So for Ireland, the UK, Denmark, southern parts of Sweden and Norway, and into the Baltic Sea states, once again, we see the temperature anomaly of around 1 to 3 degrees above average. The coolest anomalies are in the extreme north of Europe again. So from Iceland through the Norwegian Sea into central and northern parts of Norway, Sweden, and northern Finland, we find there the temperature anomaly is slightly below average. So the cool temperature anomaly is being kept at bay, really, in this week. Precipitation is looking like this. So wetter than average in the far north of Europe again, particularly through much of Scandinavia and into the far north of Europe around those Baltic Sea states, above average precipitation. Maybe not just rainfall, with cold average temperature anomalies. There is a prospect perhaps of a little bit of snow coming through in those areas, especially over more mountainous regions, I would have thought. Elsewhere, though, lots of dry weather, so really dry again through much of Central and Eastern Europe, particularly again focused around the Balkans, the Adriatic, and in towards Italy as well. Very substantially drier than normal through there. Still a little bit on the dry and average side through Ireland and southern parts of England and Wales, perhaps a bit wetter though for Scotland. I mean, down towards Spain and Portugal, maybe just signs that it's turning a little bit more unsettled through there as well. Week 3 will be the 16th to the 23rd of October. So low pressure increasingly taking over here across much of Europe in the ascendancy, particularly focused in the North Atlantic towards Ireland and Scotland, actually. 500 millibar heights look like that, so a trough of below average heights setting up in the North Atlantic and around the UK. Higher pressure drifting off in towards eastern parts of Europe. Just a general change to significantly more unsettled conditions, I think, in the West of Europe. Above average temperatures, really, in most areas. Yes, around 1 to 3 degrees above average, largely across much of Europe. And precipitation, so much wetter in the west of Europe now. So again, Scandinavia and down into the Low Countries, into the far north of France, Ireland, UK, and through into Portugal and the far north and west of Spain. Wetter than average conditions through here, but particularly focused, I think, around northern France, Ireland, the UK, probably the Low Countries, Denmark and southern Scandinavia. Dry and average conditions retreating towards the far east and south of Europe, so from Ukraine down through the Black Sea in towards Greece. That's where it looks like it's driving on, but it does appear to be turning more unsettled across many parts of Europe there through the middle part of October. Week 4 will be the 23rd to the 30th of October. Low pressure still seems to be dominating across much of Europe this week. 500 millibar heights. Shows that we've got a ridge over on the far eastern side of Europe. Otherwise, actually, there's not much sign of a trough of low pressure in northern and western parts of Europe. Temperature is still widely above average in many areas, but precipitation still looks unsettled again, particularly in the north, west Europe, and over to the Black Sea. So really most of Europe looks like it's unsettled and dominated by low pressure there in the final full week of October. Well, that's your 30-day look ahead done, but let's go through weeks 5 and 6 data before we go. So week 5 will be the 30th of October to the 6th of November. So lower pressure then may be starting to shift a bit further southwards into more southern parts of Europe, but we do have some low pressure in the Atlantic as well. 500 millibar heights look like that. So trough of below average heights in the Atlantic. That probably brings in a westerly flow into the west of Europe anyway. Higher pressure is over on the far eastern side of Europe again. The temperature anomaly, once more, it's above average in most areas. Gradually, the warmest anomalies look like they're shifting further southwards and eastwards. Maybe a little bit of a cool down going on in the far north and west. And precipitation anomalies are, so it's wetter than average across the North Atlantic, probably into the northwest of Europe. Although it is quite a weak signal. And then week 6 will be the 6th of November to the 13th. And so it's a little bit of higher pressure building in the Norwegian Sea there, with lower pressure further southwards. Could perhaps be the start of things getting colder across the northern and western parts of Europe, maybe with some east or northeasterly winds setting up. 500 millibar heights seem to show higher pressure building to the north of the UK and island towards Scandinavia and back to Western Russia. Again, could that start to pull in the wind from an easterly direction? If it does, in the middle of November, that could be quite cold. How's the temperature anomaly looking? So still generally just average to a little bit above. I think there's a bit of a cool down that's going on here through the early part of November, but not going colder than average at this stage. No, we don't want to go too far. We're saying it's going to get colder. And precipitation sending the wettest weather down across southern parts of Europe. A little bit drier than average up here. Might be indicative of some blocking beginning to get going. Again, as it's 6 weeks away, it's so far out that it's not really worth bearing, too much in mind with it. But quite interesting about how we finish up at week 6. No more than that. Right, so we've got a pretty decent outlook, quite strong signal for the rest of October anyway. It's looks to be starting off exceptionally warm and with a lot of dry weather as well. There is a progression as we go through October to turn significantly more unsettled, significantly wetter, particularly for northern and western parts of Europe. And as that happens, probably turning a bit cooler as well, particularly compared to the very warm weather we have at the beginning of the month. Right, okay, remember just a snapshot of what model is showing could look completely different when we look at this again next week. Any forecast beyond 5-7 days comes with big hail warnings, live pinches of site attached. We will look at this one again on Saturday with a UK and Ireland focus, by the way. We're going to be back shortly with your 10 to 14 day, or a little bit later on actually, with your 10 to 14 day, so come back for that later. For this week's extended European Outlook, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.